On Thanksgiving, my parents told me, "We sold your $32,000 Harley-Davidson motorcycle and cashed out your emergency fund. Your sister needs money for her new house." Then Mom pushed a loan form toward me, "Co-sign it or pack your bags tonight." I didn't argue. I took my keys and left. The next morning, they found my folded note. My sister started screaming. Mom called the bank. And Dad kept reading the same line. The co-sign form was already on the table when I sat down for Thanksgiving dinner, positioned beside my plate like a place setting. White paper, 3 signature lines marked with yellow tabs, a ballpoint pen laid diagonally across the top. My mother had folded the napkins into triangles, set out the good silverware, and put cranberry sauce in the crystal bowl she used twice a year. She had also placed a loan document next to my fork and expected me to sign it between the turkey and the pumpkin pie. I picked up the pen. Then I looked at the empty hook by the garage door where my Harley key used to hang. The hook was bare, a small screw in drywall, nothing on it. That hook had held the same steel ring and ignition key for 3 years. Every morning before work I grabbed it on my way through the garage, and every night I hung it back. I knew the weight of it, the way it swung when the garage door opened and the air shifted through. It was not hanging there now. I set the pen down. My father cleared his throat. Doyle sat at the head of the table the way he always did, carving knife resting beside the turkey. Sleeves rolled to his forearms. He worked as an auto body shop foreman, and his hands always carried the faint shadow of grease in the knuckle lines, even on holidays. 56 years old, $52,000 a year, and he still cut the turkey like a man who believed carving gave him authority. "We need to talk about something before we eat." Harper was already seated across from me with her boyfriend Nico beside her. My sister had her phone face down on the table, and a look on her face I had seen before, the look she wore when she already knew what was about to happen and wanted to watch someone else find out. 25 years old, part-time barista, $24,000 a year, and she was about to tell me what my $32,000 bought her. Doyle told me he had sold the Harley that morning. A buyer from a dealership in Kerrville came with a cashier's check, $32,000. The check was already deposited into Harper's escrow account for the house she and Nico were buying. A 3-bedroom on Weller Road, listed at $245,000. They needed the down payment gap covered. The motorcycle covered it. My mother Mavis sat to Doyle's left, hands folded, watching me the way she watched the oven timer. Part-time bakery counter clerk, $18,000 a year. She had known about the sale for 3 weeks and managed to fold napkins and set out the crystal bowl without the weight of it showing anywhere on her face. "And your emergency fund?" Doyle continued. His voice was steady, practiced, as if he had rehearsed this in the truck on the way home from the dealership. "That was in a joint account with my name on it. I cleaned it out in August. $14,000. You never even noticed. That should tell you how much you actually needed it. August, 3 months. He had drained $14,000 from our shared savings account 3 months ago and sat across from me at every Sunday dinner since without mentioning it. He passed the salt, asked about my shifts, told me the dishwasher was making a noise again. 3 months of normal while the account sat at 0. The account had been opened when I was 17. His name was on it as a custodial cosigner. I never removed it because I never thought I needed to. That was the cost of trusting your father with a number. Then he looked at me and delivered the rest of it. You ride that motorcycle to work and back like it means something. It is a $32,000 toy that sits in my garage 6 days a week while your sister is trying to buy a house for her family. You are 28 years old, Briar, no boyfriend. No house. No plan past your next paycheck. Harper has Nico. Harper has a future. You have a helmet and a savings account you treat like a pet. Nico reached for the breadbasket and pulled a roll apart with his thumbs. He was smiling. 27 years old, warehouse associate, $42,000 a year, and he sat there with breadcrumbs on his fingers while my father auctioned my life to pay for his down payment. If you have ever watched a family take a person apart at a dinner table while the food is still warm, you know that the cruelty is not in the volume, it is in the calmness. It is in the cranberry sauce and the folded napkins and the fact that someone set the table knowing this was the plan before the turkey went into the oven. My mother did not wince. My sister did not look away. Nico pulled apart a second roll. The meal had been organized around my silence, and every person at that table expected me to deliver it. I had been paying my parents' mortgage shortfall for 3 years, $750 a month transferred from my checking account on the first of every month, because Doyle's income was not enough to cover the $1,540 payment, plus property taxes, plus utilities, plus Harper's car insurance that I covered at $180 a month. My mother's $18,000 barely moved the needle. Together they were short every single month, and I filled the gap without being asked twice, because Mavis told me when I was 25, the family needs you close, Briar. I believed that meant love. It meant money. If you are new to this channel, welcome to Karma Unfolded. Subscribe now, because what this family did at that table and what I did after I left it is a story that adds up to a number none of them expected. Mavis pushed the cosign form across the table toward me. Her fingernail tapped the first yellow tab. Cosign it or pack your bags tonight. Your sister is building a home. You are building nothing. You sit in your childhood bedroom like you are waiting for something to happen to you. I am tired of watching you collect a paycheck and pretend that is the same thing as having a life. Harper needs this house. You need to grow up. Harper leaned forward. You were never going to use that money for anything real. You just liked watching the number go up. I need a roof. You need a reality check. I looked at the form. 3 signature lines, yellow tabs, a 30-year mortgage on a property I would never live in, tied to my credit score of 760, guaranteeing a loan for a sister who earned $24,000 a year and a boyfriend who pulled 42 at a warehouse. Combined income, $66,000. Not enough for $245,000 without someone else's name on the guarantee. My name. My score, my future wrapped around their monthly payment like a steel cable that I could never cut without shredding my own credit. I work as a CNC machinist at a precision manufacturing plant. 5 years, union position. I cut steel to tolerances of 0.02 of an inch on computer-controlled lathes. I do not guess, I measure. And I knew what co-signing meant because my coworker Sage explained it to me 2 years ago when her cousin asked her the same thing. If they stop paying, the bank comes for you, your credit, your wages, your name on the default. You become the floor under someone else's house, and if the floor cracks, you fall through it. I did not sign. I pushed my chair back, walked through the kitchen to the garage door, and looked at the hook. The key was still there. The motorcycle was gone, but the key had no resale value. A key without a bike starts nothing. Doyle had not bothered to take it because to him it was scrap. I pulled it off the hook. Plain steel ring, single ignition key, worn smooth on the grip edge from 3 years of mornings. I put it in my jacket pocket. Then I walked back to the kitchen counter, reached into my inside pocket, and set down a folded piece of paper. Face down. One fold. That note had been in my jacket for 5 days. I wrote it at my workbench during a lunch break, sitting on the steel stool I had used for 5 years, with a pencil and a yellow legal pad. I wrote every number, every month, every dollar. Then I folded it once and carried it with me because I knew this dinner was coming. I knew it because I had found the email 2 weeks earlier. I walked out the front door without going back to my childhood bedroom. I drove to Sage's apartment in my 10-year-old Honda Civic, the car I had driven before I bought the Harley, and kept afterward because I never trusted that one vehicle was enough. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I used the family desktop computer in the living room to print a shipping label for a part I was returning. The browser had 3 tabs open. One was a weather page. One was a coupon site. The third was Harper's Gmail, still logged in. The most recent email in the sent folder was addressed to Doyle, dated 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. Subject line, house stuff. Dad, can you get the rest from Breyer's fund? The motorcycle should cover the gap. She does not need it if she stays here. She does not need it if she stays here. That sentence rearranged 3 years of dinners, holidays, and guilt. Every time Mavis said the family needs you close, Harper heard the ATM is still in the building. The motorcycle was not Doyle's idea. It was Harper's. She emailed the instruction and Doyle followed it the way he followed every request that came with a reason he could dress up as fatherhood. I opened my banking app on my phone and checked the emergency fund. Balance, $0.00. Last withdrawal, August 14th. $14,000. Transferred to an account ending in 7741, which I did not recognize, 3 months ago. He took the money in August and told me in November. He waited until the Harley was also sold, so both thefts would land as a single done deal. I was supposed to hear the combined number, feel the weight of it, and realize that arguing would not bring any of it back. I closed the browser tab without clearing the history. Harper would never know I saw it, because Harper never imagined I would look. Day -12. I told Sage everything in the parking lot after second shift. The lot was half empty, and the security light above us buzzed the way it always does when the temperature drops below 50. Sage leaned against the hood of her truck with her arms crossed and her safety glasses pushed up into her hair. She had worked 8 hours on a titanium aerospace contract that allowed 0 defects per 1,000 parts, and she was still standing in a parking lot listening to me describe how my father had sold my motorcycle and emptied my bank account without telling me for 3 months. I told her about the email, the bank balance, the 3 years of payments. She listened without interrupting, which is rare for Sage, who once stopped a shop floor meeting to tell our supervisor his torque calculations were off by 11%. When I finished, she said, "How much total?" "All of it. Everything you paid them and everything they took." I had already done the math on a receipt from the plant vending machine, pencil on the back of a $1.50 coffee slip. $750 a month for the mortgage times 36 months, $27,000. Utilities at $280 times 36, $10,080. Harper's car insurance at $180 times 36, $6,480. Property taxes at $3,800 a year times 3, $11,400. Plus the $8,200 Harper borrowed and never repaid. Family support total, $63,160. Sage pulled her safety glasses off her head and held them by the temple arm. $63,000. And they sold your motorcycle on top of that. $32,000. And the savings account. $14,000. She put the glasses in her pocket and looked at me the way she looks at a part that came off the lathe wrong. Not with anger, with measurement. Like she was calculating how far off spec the situation was, and whether it could be corrected or needed to be scrapped entirely. $63,000 of support, Breyer, plus $46,000 stolen. And they sat across from you every Sunday and asked you to pass the potatoes. She was quiet for a moment. The security light buzzed. Then she said, "You underreacted for 3 years. $63,000 of underreacting. Day -10. I sat in the office of an attorney named Quentin, who specialized in civil and consumer protection cases. I told him the facts. He told me the law. The Harley was titled in Doyle's name. As title holder, he could legally sell it. But I paid for it with documented savings withdrawals totaling $32,000 over 2 years. Quentin said I had a civil claim for unjust enrichment. The paper trail was clean. The joint savings account was a custodial account. Either party could withdraw the full balance. The bank had no obligation to notify me. But Quentin said I also had a claim for conversion of funds because Doyle used the withdrawal for Harper's benefit, not the account's intended purpose. He drafted a demand letter. $46,000. $32,000 for the motorcycle. $14,000 for the savings. 30-day response window. Certified mail. He would send it on day 7. I also learned, sitting in Quentin's office, the third thing that changed how I understood my family. The $8,200 Harper had borrowed from me over 2 years was never intended as loans. She used the first $3,200 to pay down credit card debt. She used the next $5,000 the same way. Not for a car repair, as she told me. She was lowering her credit utilization ratio to boost her score high enough to qualify for the mortgage pre-approval. My money was part of the house plan from the beginning. Every dollar she borrowed was a step toward the closing table, and she never planned to return any of it. Day -5. Lunch break at my workbench. I wrote the note on a yellow legal pad. Every number, every month, every dollar. The line that mattered most came last, and I did not plan it. I was writing the total, and my pencil kept going. I was not your daughter. I was your payment schedule. I read it back, folded the paper once, put it in my jacket. I carried it for 5 days before it landed on the counter. I almost signed the cosign form. My hand was on the pen at the Thanksgiving table, and the key pressed against my knuckles through my jacket lining. The weight of something I had already lost stopped my fingers from reaching towards something I could still lose. I pulled my hand back and stood up. Sage's apartment. Thanksgiving night, 10:40. Her couch smelled like dryer sheets, and the coffee she made was instant because Sage does not own a coffee maker. She owns 3 torque wrenches, a micrometer set, and a truck she rebuilt from the frame up in her father's driveway the summer after high school. She answered the door in a flannel shirt and did not ask why I was standing on her welcome mat with a duffel bag on Thanksgiving night. She just stepped aside and said, "Coffee or water?" My duffel bag sat between my boots, the key pressed into my palm, 2 mismatched mugs of instant coffee on the table. They sold your bike and emptied your savings and asked you to chain your credit to your sister's house, Sage said. She set her mug down and folded her arms. And they did it at Thanksgiving dinner. Between the cranberry sauce and the pumpkin pie, they tried to turn you into a co-signer for the rest of your life. I asked if I overreacted. She looked at me like I had asked whether steel was heavy. Breyer, you paid their mortgage for 3 years. You covered your sister's car insurance. You loaned her $8,000 she spent on credit card bills. And when they ran out of things to take from your checking account, they took your motorcycle and your savings and then asked you to guarantee someone else's 30-year loan with your own credit score. You did not overreact. Tonight was the first time you reacted at all. She was right. And she was right in a way that settled something in my chest. The way a measurement settles when the digital readout stops flickering and gives you the number. I stopped turning the key over in my hand and zipped it into my jacket pocket. I lived in my childhood bedroom because my mother said the family needed me close. I believed close meant loved, not convenient. I paid the mortgage because I thought that was what you did when you lived under someone else's roof. I should have left 2 years ago when Harper asked for the second loan, and I noticed she never mentioned the first. I know that now. Friday morning, the day after Thanksgiving. Harper drove to my parents' house at 8:15 because she wanted to discuss the closing timeline for the Weller Road house. The escrow deposit was in, the inspection was done, and the mortgage pre-approval from First Pacific would expire December 15th if the closing did not happen before then. She needed the cosign to lock the terms. She found the note on the counter. She picked it up the way people pick up things they do not yet understand, casually, with one hand, expecting a grocery list or a reminder about the thermostat. She unfolded it. Read the first line. Her eyes moved down the page and her grip on the paper changed. Both hands now. The numbers ran down the page like a receipt for 3 years of silence. And Harper's mouth opened, and the sound that came out was not anger. It was the sound of a $245,000 house collapsing into a piece of yellow paper. She called the escrow company from the kitchen, pacing between the counter and the stove, her voice climbing with every sentence. Without my co-signature, the lender would not finalize. The pre-approval required a guarantor with a credit score above 720. Harper's was 640, Nico's was 610, mine was 760. Without me, the numbers did not work, and neither did the house. The escrow officer told her the file could not proceed without the guarantor's executed signature. Harper asked if there was another way. The officer said she could reapply with a different co-signer. Harper did not have one. Nobody in this family had a credit score above 650 except me. Mavis grabbed the phone from Harper and called the bank. She asked about the December mortgage payment on their own house. The auto pay had been canceled. No $750 would arrive on the 1st. The full balance of $1,840 was due from the account holders. That was Doyle and Mavis alone. The teller confirmed there was no other authorized payer. Doyle picked up the note. He read it slowly. His lips moved over the 9th line without sound. I was not your daughter. I was your payment schedule. He read it again. And again. The note trembled slightly because his hands were not steady, and he did not seem to notice. He held it with both hands and stared at 9 words that rearranged everything he had believed about his own household for 36 months. He had believed he was managing a family. The note told him he was running a billing cycle, and the billing department had just resigned. Meanwhile, I sat in a different bank, Marsh Avenue Credit Union, the one my plants union recommended, and opened a new account. The teller asked for the account holder's name. Breyer. Just Breyer. No joint holder. No custodial co-signer. No second name on the form. The account opened with $1,200, my last paycheck, rerouted before Thanksgiving. Every future paycheck would deposit here and nowhere else. Doyle's name would never sit beside mine on a financial document again. By day 5, I signed a lease on a studio apartment, 500 square feet on the 2nd floor of a converted warehouse 3 miles from the plant. $850 a month. My name on the lease. My key in the lock. The walls were bare, and the kitchen had 2 cabinets and a stove that made a clicking sound before the flame caught. It was mine, and it measured what it said it measured, and nobody at this address owed anybody anything. If you have been watching from the beginning and you think this story is about a motorcycle, stay with the numbers, because the motorcycle was the bait. The cosign form was the trap, and the note was the invoice that burned the whole arrangement to the ground. Subscribe to Karma Unfolded if you want to hear what happened when Doyle showed up at my door 10 days later and I said every number to his face. Day 10. A knock at my studio door, 3 hard raps from the base of a fist. I opened it. Doyle stood in the hallway in his work jacket with the auto body shop logo on the chest. He looked past me into the apartment. Bare walls. A mattress on a metal frame. A shelf by the door with my helmet on it. The helmet was always in my name. Always mine. Come home, Breyer. We can work this out. Your mother misses you. I stepped aside and let him in. He sat in the only chair. I took the key out of my jacket and set it on the table between us. The steel ring clicked against the surface. That key starts nothing now. Sit down. He was already sitting. The instruction was not about the chair. You said I had no plan past my next paycheck. I kept my hands on the table, palms flat. My paychecks paid your mortgage for 3 years. Your plan was my paycheck. Your plan walked out the door on Thanksgiving. Doyle's jaw shifted right. The muscle in his temple moved once. I stood up. I had rehearsed nothing. But I had carried the numbers for 3 years the way I carried tolerances at my machine, exact to the 1,000th, because precision is not something I turn on at the plant and shut off at home. $750 a month for your mortgage. 36 months. $27,000. $280 a month for your utilities. $10,080. Harper's car insurance, $180 a month. $6,480. Your property taxes, $11,400. $8,200 in loans to Harper that she used to pay down credit card debt so she could qualify for a mortgage. Not car repairs, credit card balances. She borrowed money from me to make herself look creditworthy enough to borrow money from a bank. $63,160 from the daughter who sits in her childhood bedroom. I set both hands on the edge of the table and leaned forward. Then you sold my motorcycle for $32,000 because your younger daughter sent you an email that said, and I am quoting, "The motorcycle should cover the gap. She does not need it if she stays here." And you drained my savings for $14,000. That is $109,160. From the daughter with no future to the daughter with nothing but one. That is not family, Doyle. That is a billing cycle. And this is the last invoice. Doyle's hands went flat on his thighs. He pressed down like he was holding himself in the chair. His breathing moved to his mouth, audible, dry. His right hand lifted from his thigh and moved toward the key on the table. It stopped 2 inches short. Held there, fingers open, reaching for something that no longer started anything. Then it pulled back to his leg. The cosign form, I continued. You work in auto lending. You process loan applications 5 days a week. You know exactly what cosigning means. If Harper and Nico stop paying, the default hits my credit, my wages, my name. You were not giving Harper a house. You were building me a cage. Chain my score to her mortgage, and I could never leave this family without destroying my own financial record. That was not a gift to your younger daughter. That was a lock on your older one. Doyle opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. His face was the face of a man who had walked into this apartment expecting to collect his daughter, and was instead being handed an invoice for the cost of raising himself. I built this family. Everything you have came from this house. Everything I have came from 5 years on a factory floor and a savings account you emptied while I was sleeping. I saved $32,000 over 2 years to buy that motorcycle. 2 years of overtime and skipped vacations and eating lunch from the plant vending machine. You sold it in one morning and deposited the check before I sat down for dinner. He tried to interrupt. I did not let him. My attorney Quentin sent you a certified letter 3 days ago. $46,000. $32,000 for the motorcycle, $14,000 for the savings account. Unjust enrichment and conversion of funds. You have 30 days to respond. After that, Quentin files in county court. I looked at him and said the next sentence without raising my voice, without leaning forward, without any of the heat I had carried for 2 weeks and 1,400 miles of commuting with a useless key in my pocket. You said Harper has a future. She was building it with my money. Now she has neither. Doyle's shoulders rounded forward. His posture folded at the center, and his jaw worked side to side without producing words. His eyes dropped to the key on the table and stayed there like a man reading something written in a language he used to know. This is the last time you knock on this door. The last time you call and I pick up. The last time Harper sends a text asking for money she calls a loan. I needed $32,000 of motorcycle and $14,000 of savings. You needed a signature on a form. We both left Thanksgiving with nothing. The difference is, I know how to build mine back. I opened the apartment door. Doyle stood slowly, the way a man stands when his legs are not certain they want to carry the rest of him out of a room. He walked to the frame and stopped. His hand rested on the door frame, and his knuckles were white against the painted wood. Your grandfather built that garage with his own hands. That hook has been there since before you were born. This family goes back further than a motorcycle and a savings account. You are right. It goes back $63,000 and 36 months further. and the key is not on the hook anymore. It is in this apartment now. Go home, Doyle. He opened his mouth one more time. Whatever he was about to say died before it reached his teeth. He dropped his hand from the frame and walked down the hallway without turning around. I closed the door and turned the deadbolt. The bolt clicked into the frame and the sound was small and final. Day 14. My Uncle Ty, Doyle's older brother, called Doyle on a Sunday evening. Ty ran a plumbing business on the east side, had 3 employees, and a 20-year reputation for showing up when he said he would. He had heard from Mavis's sister, who heard from Mavis herself, that I had left over a disagreement about Harper's house. The word disagreement was doing heavy lifting in that sentence, carrying $46,000 of theft and 3 years of unpaid labor on its back. Ty called me first. I answered on the second ring. I told him the truth with numbers, all of them, and he listened the way a man who runs his own payroll listens to numbers, quietly, all the way through, adding them in his head. When I finished, he was silent for 4 seconds. Then he said, "Give me an hour." Ty called Doyle. "You sold her motorcycle, the one she paid for with her savings over 2 years. And you emptied her bank account 3 months before you told her. And you asked her to co-sign a mortgage at Thanksgiving dinner, at the table, while the food was still warm." Doyle started explaining about Harper's needs and the housing market and family helping family. Ty cut him off mid-sentence. "My wife sent the Christmas invitations this morning. Your name is not on one. Briar's is. She is bringing dessert." He hung up. Doyle called back twice. Ty did not answer either time. Day 15. Mavis called my phone at 9 in the morning. Her voice had the careful softness she used when she needed something to land gently, because the truth underneath it was sharp. "Briar, your father is not well. Heart palpitations. His blood pressure was 190 over 110 at the pharmacy machine. He needs you to come home." I almost called Doyle that night. The phone was in my hand, his name on the screen. Sage's voice from Thanksgiving cut through it, $63,000 of underreacting. I set the phone on the nightstand and let the screen go dark. "Briar, please, he is your father. He has not slept in 3 days. He sits in the kitchen reading that note over and over. Whatever you wrote on that paper broke something in him. What I wrote on that paper was the truth. Every number, every month, every dollar. If the truth broke something, it was already cracked." Mavis tried one more time, "Come home, just for an hour, just to talk. You have a daughter who lives in a house you bought with my money. Call her." The line went quiet. Mavis did not call back. Day 21. Doyle's kitchen. The December mortgage statement sat open on the counter beside the remains of a meal for two $1,840 due on the 15th. Without my $750, the full amount fell on Doyle and Mavis alone. Add the quarterly property tax installment at $317 a month. Utilities at $280. His truck payment at $380. Harper's car insurance at $180, which was now unpaid because the policy I had been covering was canceled for non-payment on December 8th. The cancellation letter sat on the counter next to the mortgage statement. Monthly obligations, $2,997. Doyle's take-home on $52,000 a year after taxes and union dues, roughly $3,380. Remaining after bills, $383. For groceries, gas, phone, and everything else a household needs to not collapse. Harper called the house that afternoon. Her voice was tight and fast, the voice of someone holding a piece of mail that just rearranged their week. "Why is my car insurance canceled?" "I got a letter from the carrier. Coverage terminated December 8th. I have been driving without insurance for 2 weeks. Every time I drove to work, every time I drove to the grocery store, every time Nico and I drove to look at apartments after the house fell through. I was uninsured. Why did nobody tell me? Doyle, standing at the counter with a credit card application open on his phone, a phone that used to ring with my name on it every first of the month, confirming the transfer went through. Breyer was paying it. 6 seconds of silence on the line. Not the kind of silence that comes before an argument. The kind that comes after a person realizes the ground they were standing on was never theirs. Harper hung up without another word. Mavis opened the refrigerator door, looked at what was left on the shelves, 2 eggs, a block of cheese, condiments, and closed it without reaching for anything. The light from inside swept across her face and disappeared when the seal caught. I almost tore up the note instead of leaving it. 5 days before Thanksgiving, sitting at my workbench after writing the last number. I held the folded paper over the steel scrap bin and thought about letting it fall. Then I opened my banking app one more time. Emergency fund, 0. Last withdrawal, August 14th. 14,000 to nothing, 3 months before they told me. They planned, so I would plan. The note went back into my jacket and stayed there. Day 28. Title company office on Ridgefield Boulevard. Harper and Nico sat across from the closing agent in a small conference room with a dying fern in the corner and a stack of folders on the table. The mortgage pre-approval from First Pacific had expired on December 15th. Without my co-signature, the lender would not extend it. Harper and Nico's combined income of $66,000 was insufficient for $245,000 without a guarantor. The $32,000 from the Harley and the $14,000 from my savings sat in the escrow account, $46,000 doing nothing. Without a mortgage, there was no house to attach them to. The money had nowhere to go and nothing to close on. The closing agent reviewed the file one final time, turned a page, turned it back, and slid the folder shut with both hands. The approval has lapsed. You would need to reapply with a qualified co-signer or a significantly larger down payment. I can hold the escrow deposit for 60 days, but the property will be relisted. Inside that folder was a set of house keys the agent had been prepared to hand Harper. 2 keys on a paper tag with the Weller Road address written in blue marker. The agent had set them inside the folder that morning, expecting to slide them across the table at the end of the meeting. Harper stared at the closed folder. She did not ask to open it. She did not ask about reapplying or alternative lenders or what a larger down payment would require. She sat with her hands flat on the table and her eyes on the folder, and she did not move. Nico put his hand on her shoulder. She did not acknowledge it. The folder stayed shut, the keys stayed inside. The 3-bedroom on Weller Road would go back on the market in January. And someone else would get the paper tag and the blue marker and the closing appointment that Harper spent 2 years of my money trying to earn. Harper and Nico signed a rental lease the following week. A 1-bedroom on Danbury Street, $1,200 a month. $300 more per month than the mortgage payment would have been. The down payment money sat in escrow, shrinking toward release fees and closing costs that closed nothing. Quentin's demand letter sat in Doyle's kitchen with the December bills and the insurance cancellation. $46,000. 30 days. Doyle had not responded by Christmas. The filing date in January was circled on Quentin's calendar in red. At the bakery where Mavis worked, a coworker asked about her holiday plans during the morning rush. Mavis wiped the counter with a rag she had already used twice and said, "Quiet this year." She changed the subject to the weather forecast and did not bring it up again. The coworker let it go. At Doyle's house, the garage sat empty except for a push mower and a shelf of motor oil. The hook by the door was bare. The oil stain on the concrete floor where the Harley used to sit was the only proof it had been there at all. A dark rectangle, the shape of a motorcycle, that no amount of degreaser would lift completely. And at my studio apartment, 30 days after Thanksgiving, the morning came in through the window the way it does in buildings that face east with no curtains yet. I stood by the shelf near the door. The helmet sat on it, scuffed from 3 years of riding to work and back. Always in my name. Always mine. Doyle could sell the bike because the title was his. He could drain the savings because his name was on the account. But the helmet was registered to me and paid for with a receipt I still had in my filing box. He could not touch it, and he never tried. I opened the nightstand drawer, set the key inside on the bare wood, plain steel ring, single ignition key, worn smooth. I closed the drawer, not thrown away, not on display. Retired, the bike was gone, and the key started nothing, but it was the one thing they could not sell because it had no market value to anyone except the person who remembered what it used to turn on. My bank account at Marsh Avenue Credit Union held $2,800, my name only. The lease at $850 was tight on $58,000 but manageable, especially with overtime. The plant needed me Monday through Friday, and Sage worked 2 stations overrunning the same model lathe with the same tolerances on the same production line. My phone sat face up on the nightstand beside the closed drawer. A text from Sage, sent at 6:45 that morning, overtime Saturday? I typed back, I will be there. The apartment was 500 square feet of quiet. A helmet on the shelf, a key in the drawer, a bank account with one name, a plant that pays me to cut steel to the 1,000th of an inch, where the tolerances are tight and the measurements are exact, and everything in my life now measures what it says it measures. Doyle's world sat 3 miles south, $383 a month after bills, a credit card application open on his phone, a daughter whose insurance he could not cover, an uncle who removed his name from the Christmas invitation, a $46,000 demand letter on the counter beside the mortgage statement, and an empty hook by the garage door that would never hold anything again. I did not know I was the roof. I thought I was just the daughter who lived closest. They thought I was the daughter who would never leave. We were all wrong about the same person, and the note on the counter was the first honest measurement any of us had taken in 3 years. Thank you for watching Karma Unfolded. If this story made you check the names on your own accounts, you already know why it matters. Subscribe, like, and I will see you in the next one.